Well, hello and good evening. I'm Don Arleth, and welcome to Flash News. We start off tonight with the changes in the military. The point is to radically strengthen our armed forces, Deputy Prime Minister and Peace Chairman Jarosław Kaczynski said, along with the Minister of Defense, Mariusz Błaszczak. The government presented the outline of the Homeland Defense Act. It plans to increase the budget for defense and increase the size of the Polish military.
The army trains young candidates. Today, an Olsztyn uniformed class is trained in the use of weapons. Young people aspiring to a career in the army will join the greatly strengthened Polish armed forces. This is the main objective of the Homeland Defense Act, which will put in order the legal acts concerning the Polish army. The minimum plan is to increase the army to 250,000 professional soldiers and 50,000 soldiers of the territorial defense forces. We need to increase all this, but not by a little, not by 20, 50 or 100%, but by many times. It's a huge effort, but we need it very much. Other goals include better training of soldiers, modernization of the army, as well as new incentives for candidates for service. Among others, a system of scholarships for students of civilian universities who want to serve in the army. Students will be required to serve in the military for at least 5 years after graduation. New types of military service will be introduced, including voluntary basic military service. There will be no return to conscription.
The whole continent of Europe is already facing an energy crisis. Polish oil and gas company PGNiG made a strategic move. Today it started selling gas to Moldova, which has so far been 100% dependent on Russian supplies.
Gas from Poland to Moldova has been pumped since the morning. This is the first ever delivery of non-Russian gas to the Moldovan market. By participating in the tender for gas supplies to the Moldovan market, we demonstrate how we understand the principle of energy solidarity working in practice. In connection with the energy crisis, the Moldovan authorities have introduced a state of emergency. The problem is the lack of agreement with Gazprom, which is the only supplier of gas to Moldova. The Russian giant has raised prices and cut supplies. Poland recognized long ago the danger inherent in Russia's political actions in the market for natural gas in particular. In a certain perspective, we will be able to be such a gas hub which precisely in such situations can be used. One of the elements of making Poland independent from the Russian gas supplies is the construction of the Baltic Pipe gas pipeline. The investment will enable transportations of gas through Denmark from deposits in Norway. As far as the offshore part is concerned, by the end of this year we should or will already have this gas pipeline laid. Next year is the year of tests and trials. The first gas delivery from Baltic Pipe is to reach Poland in autumn next year. The pipeline will be able to transmit 10 billion cubic meters of gas per year. The expansion of the LNG terminal in Świnoujście is also still in progress. Currently, it can receive 5 billion cubic meters of gas per year. After the expansion, its capacity will increase by more than half. Poland does not rely on gas supplies from Russia because now it can import all the gas from outside of Russia, and in future it will give up these supplies altogether if there is such a political will. The floating gas terminal in the Gdańsk Bay will be able to receive and store liquefied gas. It's also supposed to increase the energy security of Poland. The terminal is to be ready in 6 years.
The King of Jordan is visiting Warsaw. The delegations of both countries met for plenary talks. Jordan is a valued partner for Poland, and we see those excellent relations in the high dynamics of bilateral contacts, conveyed the Chancellery of the Polish president.
We have good economic relations with Jordan. In 2018, the Polish-Jordanian Economic Forum was held. Both countries presented opportunities for mutual business cooperation. Jordan is also a close partner of the European Union. It is one of the most important NATO partners. Today's meeting is a continuation of good relations, which also focus on cooperation in the field of security.
Now it's time for the coronavirus update, and the pandemic is back on the rise. More than 6,000 new infections and 93 deaths. Those are the numbers for the last 24 hours. The fourth wave is rising faster than expected. Meanwhile, the government is increasing the number of COVID beds available in hospitals, and temporary hospitals will be opened once again.
Two field hospitals in Białystok are bursting at their seams. The situation is dramatic. The number of patients is exponentially increasing. Most of them are not vaccinated. We are concerned that patients are coming in with more severe conditions than before. Out of the nearly 10,000 beds available, more than half are already occupied, and by the end of November, more than 10,000 people a day could be infected. There will be an increase of almost 8,500 beds. This is the space that will give us safety for a few weeks. New field hospitals are also being built, but vaccination is key in the fight against the pandemic. These are the last days where we can still get vaccinated. Some of us can still avoid being responsible for infecting of other people. We can't be subcontractors of pandemic stupidity. We should follow our reason. Starting on the 2nd of November, the third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine will be available to all adults.
A former Facebook employee continues to expose her employer's infamous practices. Frances Haugen, appearing before a special committee of the British Parliament, testified that the internet giant will not stop fueling unrest around the world because its algorithms are designed to promote controversial content.
According to Huygen, Facebook's algorithms are radicalizing its users. She also claims that the site was exacerbating the problems of spreading hate. This is another round of information putting the digital giant in a bad light. In September, the Wall Street Journal published a series of articles based on Facebook's internal documents. According to the American portal NBC News, Facebook allegedly fueled the mood also in Poland during the campaign in 2019. Vaccinated, recovered, examined. Only such people from November will be able to come to work in Austria and use ski slopes, for example. The pandemic situation in Russia is not improving. Over 1,100 deaths have been reported in the past 24 hours. In Ukraine, more than 700 people have died from the coronavirus, the highest number since the beginning of the pandemic, and authorities have banned unvaccinated teachers and civil servants from coming to work. In contrast, the US is lifting restrictions on vaccinated international travelers. The new rules will go into effect on the 8th of November. Work has officially been halted on the film Rust, during the production of which a tragic accident occurred. Alec Baldwin fatally shot the cameraman and wounded the director. The actor himself suspends his career, and new facts come to light during the investigation. It turns out that the assistant director who gave Baldwin the unlucky gun had already violated safety rules on the set.
After years of controversy and the media firestorm surrounding their engagement, Japan's Princess Mako finally married a native of the Kikomoro people. Because of this, she lost her royal status. Now the newlyweds plan to move to New York City, where her now husband works as an attorney.
The princess knew what her relationship might result in, but she made her decision a long time ago. She says the media storm she caused led her to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. That's why Emperor Naruhito Sneeze deliberately left the Tokyo palace and waived her severance pay, nearly $1.5 million. We will start a new life together. Various difficulties will arise, but we will solve them together. I love Mako. I want to be with the person I love. Japan is divided. Ideally, people would leave them alone and let them just live. But others have a grudge. In their view, it is not fair for a princess to live with a commoner. On top of that, there were also alleged financial problems of Kei Komoro's mother, who did not pay back the money she borrowed. The opponents are searching for every damaging detail. Even his hairstyle, a ponytail, has been commented on as not well perceived among high society. He cut his hair, but it did not help. The young couple will start their new life in New York.
And now for a priceless philatelic treasure at an auction in London. It's the penny black, the first ever postage stamp, which was put into use 181 years ago. It is estimated that during the auction in December, it could fetch a price of over $8 million.
The one-pence stamp with the image of the young British Queen Victoria once contributed to a real revolution in postal services.
Mass communication with the stamp had its birth, and today, well, we don't think about it, do we? We communicate as if it's just a natural right. Prior to the 6th of May 1840, it was not.
Before that, it was the addressee who paid the cost of delivering the letter. It was not cheap, so it often happened that the mail was left unclaimed, and so the stamp was born. The civil war in Syria left a tragic mark on the lives of the country's people, also concerning culture. It has suffered greatly as a result of the destructive power of the armed conflict, which can be seen, among other things, in Damascus, where bookstores are disappearing en masse. Muhammad Salem al-Noor is the owner of one of them. He inherited a 100-year-old bookshop from his father and looks into the future with fear. Book prices are high, and after years of war, Syrians have other priorities than reading. He goes to cafes, yes indeed, for coffee, but being there more than in the coffee itself, he is interested in the people who drink it. Albanian artist David Kriamandi offers his guests an art therapy, portraits made with coffee. While painting, he establishes contact with his models, talks about their fears and problems. The artist also tries to evoke a smile on their faces by dipping the brush in coffee. Meanwhile, the coffee in the cup is usually cooling down. Collecting plastic caps makes sense. In the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, they are used, for example, to make skateboards. The idea came from Canadian engineer Ariane Reigani, who lives in Brazil. One skateboard is about 500 caps and several hours of work. Reigani's goal is to make people in the favelas aware that recycling is really important and that you can go far with it.
Well, that should be good for the sport and the planet. And with those recycled boards, we conclude the program. But don't go away, because Border Report's coming up next. Thanks for watching Flash News, and we'll see you next time.